All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Zoom session on how to attract and convert high-value clients in 90 days without high-pressure sales tactics. First of all, Barbara and I would like to welcome you all, as we have a lot of you on the call. I've put everyone on mute to avoid background noise. We do encourage interaction. There is a chat button down the bottom of your screen, so if you click on that, Barbara and I will both monitor that, and we'll also allow time for some questions. So if you do have questions, just put a big capital Q in the chat and then put a question in, and we do encourage comments and interaction. So let's get onto it. Over the next 60 minutes, we're going to explore three fundamental concepts underpinning how to consistently generate new business. And if you're taking notes, I suggest you write down what you're going to implement from what we go over. I'll put a replay of this up so you can have a copy of the slides. So it's not about madly scrambling, what's on the screen. Write down what you would do with some of this information, okay? Now, today is obviously in an hour. We can only give you an overview. So at the end of the session, should you wish to accelerate your progress, we're giving you some of our time to help you take a holistic view of your growth strategy. And we'll give you more details at the end of today's presentation. So, who is this for? If you're here, I'm going to assume that you sell higher value non-commodity services. You may be a professional services consultant or a firm involved in financial services such as financial planning, stockbroking or insurance, accounting or engineering, IT services or leadership, or even executive coaching. The common denominator with everyone that we work with is that you sell a complex, often intangible, higher cost solution, which is often difficult to explain the value of in terms where your prospects go, I get that, I understand the value, and I'm willing to pay for your solutions. So let me give you a brief bio for those of you who don't know us. Over the last 20 years, Barbara and I have coached and mentored aspirational business owners in over 50 different industries. And having worked both with professional consultants, solo consultants, small businesses to major multinationals, that allows us to bring a breadth of experience to the table. We know what works and can rapidly home in on where organizations need to improve their marketing and sales systems, as well as how they actually deal with their people and how they grow and scale their businesses. All of which helps you to achieve your goals, be they making more money, having more time, achieving a level of lifestyle, or giving back to your community. So I'm going to assume you're here because you have a lot of expertise and experience in your area, but you're not growing at the rate you like. And that could be due to an ineffective lead generation or an ineffective sales process. And as a result, you have an inconsistent cash flow. You're constantly chasing your tail, looking for new business, and you end up being vulnerable. What you really want instead, and this is with every business that we won't work with, is we want a consistent flow of ideal clients coming in the door, which gives us a steadily growing cash flow and, of course, profitability, which ultimately means that you get control over your destiny and you get whatever that combination of more time, more money, status, or recognition, or lifestyle that you want. Everyone agree so far? You can just give me a yes in the chat if you're in the right place. So let's look at some reality here. Every business has competition. So why would a prospect choose you? How do you differentiate yourself? And how will your potential clients recognize your experience and your uniqueness? Because unless you make yourself distinct, you will be perceived as a commodity and you risk competing on price and being assessed on price alone. And once you start competing on price, you end up discounting or in a price war, which ultimately is a race to the bottom. So your job in business is to separate yourself from your competition, make yourself distinct and stand out from the crowd so your prospects can't compare you with the competition. So you never want to be in a situation where there's an apples to apples comparison. And the best way to do this is to become a specialist in a particular market niche where you deeply understand your client's needs and have a tailored solution that separates you out from everybody else. So I want to give you an example. So John is a financial planner. He's been in the business probably well over 40 years. And before he started working with us, he was a generalist financial planner. And working with him, we realized he had a deep experience and expertise in aged care. He had lots of contacts in the area. And so when we interviewed his clients and aged care industry professionals, they all validated his experience. So we said, look, rather than trying to be a generalist and be a jack of all trades, let's become a specialist and be positioned as an expert in a particular area. And doing so has a great benefit because you're known for something. You choose a market segment where there's a growing need, and let's face it, aged care in this country is a growing need, and therefore it's an evergreen segment. And by doing so, he can also form and has formed relationships with people like Uniting Care, Probus, and other people who actually feed him business. And I can't stress highly enough the necessity to become a specialist, not a generalist, in whatever area you deal with. And that's not to say that you won't get business from outside that. The irony is the more you specialize, the more business you will get, both from inside that specialty as well as outside that specialty. So let's look at the cycle of client acquisition. Every business needs to market itself. Every business needs to go out and prospect for business. And you've got to sell, because nothing happens until something is actually sold. And then once you've got a client, you form relationships with those clients, which you can then use to generate more business from those clients. And then, of course, the clients hopefully give you referrals and recommendations. And the ultimate point in the middle is how you position yourself. And I'm going to explain that in more depth in a second. But this is the effective cycle that you have to go through in any business. You have to market yourself, because unless you're marketing yourself, you're just shouting into the wilderness and nobody even knows you're there. So this is a ladder that we take every business on. Now, there are two distinct ways that you can attract clients. One is you can push your message out there, and the other one is you pull people towards you. So if we look at each rung on the diagram, and we start down here with marketing, a business that markets itself is going to be twice as leveraged and twice as efficient as bringing in clients as somebody who doesn't. So these, if you like, are multiplication factors of efficiency and leverage that you will get from each one of these steps. So a business that markets itself is going to be much better off than a business that does nothing and waits for people to just find them somehow. A business that prospects means that you can actually reach out to your target market. You've done some research and you know that they're likely to have the issues that they're facing, and you reach out to them to see if they're interested. So marketing is somewhat passive. Prospecting means that you identify clients that you're looking for and you actively reach out. Sales is actively probing deeply into the prospect's issues, because reaching out and prospecting without actually selling, finding out what they want and closing a deal is not going to get you very far. So companies that really have a decent sales process that they leverage are 4 times more likely and 4 times more efficient in getting clients than somebody who does nothing. Moving into relationships. So you've got the client. One of the biggest mistakes we see with businesses is that once you've got a client, you don't keep upselling and seeing what else they could buy, especially if they're a larger organization. So you think you've got the first deal, but it's really the lifetime value of that client which comes to the fore. How much could they spend over their lifetime with you? And then we move into the realm of referrals. So we all want referrals, but I know that most organizations don't actually have a method of generating referrals on a regular basis. Now, a referral in our terms is somebody giving you a name and saying, hey, listen, Fred, I've given you a name to Fred. Fred will call you. But the reality is referrals are still passive. You're still waiting for somebody to call you, even though somebody has given their name to a possible prospect. If we move into recommendations, a recommendation is where I know that somebody could use your services. Therefore, I will actually phone that person, have a 3-way conversation, and actively go out and recommend you. And that is, of course, far more powerful than just a referral, because I've got skin in the game. I'm saying this person is really good and you need to go out there and you need to talk to this person. And then we get to positioning. Positioning is, if you like, the holy grail, which we all want to be at. So if you're positioned as a thought leader, an expert in your field, everything gets easier because you are now known as the specialist. Your referrers can confidently say, you know, you are the best person and you need to speak with you now, okay? And you also realize that who calls whom is very important. So if you're positioned correctly, somebody calling you is twice as likely to do business with you than if you call them as a prospect cold. And being positioned correctly does most of the heavy lifting, because someone as a trusted authority will be 10 times more effective in bringing in clients than somebody who uses none of the strategies on that ladder, which is why we always strive with our clients to help them achieve a position as a leader in the field and do everything in their power to maintain that position. Does that make sense? So let's look at the MPS system that we use with our clients. So we call it the MPS Advantage, Acquisition Advantage, and it stands for Marketing, Prospecting, and Selling. And the biggest mistake we see with organizations is that they take a piecemeal ad hoc approach to client acquisition, which means that they struggle to have a steady flow of incoming business. To consistently generate new leads and close business, you have to undertake marketing, prospecting, and selling. And while they are distinct activities, think of them like tumblers on a safe. You have to have exactly the right combination to open the door to a steady stream of clients. So let's talk about each of those in turn. Okay, so think of marketing as any activity which raises awareness, educates your prospects, and encourages them to come into your orbit. Marketing's primary job in our world is to encourage people to reach out to you. It helps you position yourself, it helps you educate your market, and it helps people to A, know that you exist and that you can solve a problem. But marketing alone is still passive. Prospecting involves identifying potential clients, proactively reaching out to them, finding out if they've got issues that you can solve and their level of interest. So when we look at marketing, marketing really only attracts the tip of the iceberg, but there's a whole bunch of other people out there that don't even know about you. They're not even looking, but they could be interested if you reached out to them. Sales then involves homing in on what your prospects want to achieve. You've prospected them, they've come in via a marketing channel, and highlighting what's stopping them from achieving them, showing them you've got a solution. Done well, if you've done the marketing and the prospecting and the positioning well, you never have to use pushy sales tactics because your marketing and positioning has done all of the heavy lifting. And clients recognize your ability to solve their issues and they want to buy. And this is something that we really hammer into people. You cannot sell something to somebody that they don't want. People have to actually want to buy, and they will buy when the time is ready for them to do so. However, the real power of leverage comes if you use all three of these. So you have to use marketing, prospecting, and selling to get real leverage. So let's look at the demand triangle. When we work with clients, we ask three fundamental questions. What is it that you actually do? Who do you do it for? And how do you actually make money? What's the economics behind all of this? So most businesses that we come across have no clear, concise message, and they can't actually identify a market segment that will resonate with what they have to offer. And many of them have absolutely no idea what it costs to get a client in the door, what they need to spend on marketing, and what their ROI, return on investment per client, is. So you've got to be really crystal clear on exactly what you do, who you do it for, and how you make your money. And that's the cornerstone of all business success. So let's take each of those in turn. Let's look at the what you do side of the equation up here. We buy things to either get rid of a problem or get some outcome that we really want. So you need to look this through your client's eyes. This is about deep compassion and understanding for your client's issues and the outcomes that they want. And you need to know what your market wants really well so that you can identify their problems and narrow it down So ask yourself, okay, what problems are you really solving for your clients? What outcomes do they want? And if there was only one thing they really, really want from you, what would that be? And what's the value that you provide? Now, when we're thinking of problems and outcomes, we need to think both in left brain and right brain outcomes. What are the tangible and quantifiable as well as visceral emotional outcomes? So a left brain outcome is measurable. It could be a number, a percentage. For instance, you've increased revenue by some percentage, or you've reduced cost by some amount. You've increased efficiency by some amount. It's quantifiable. It is tangible. A right brain outcome, and you need both, is an emotional payoff. How will they feel when they get this outcome? Is there going to be a feeling of satisfaction? Is there going to be some lifestyle increase? Are they going to increase their status, their recognition, maybe with their peers, their boss, their society at large? What is that outcome that they're looking for? And you can't do this in a vacuum. You've got to validate this with your market. You've got to validate this with your good clients and say, okay, what were the problems we were really solving for you? What were the outcomes we really got? And I can guarantee that they will tell you things. If you ask them, they will tell you things that you haven't thought of. So then we move on to the right-hand side, and that's the demographic and the psychographic. A demographic is age, gender, income, location, company size, industry, revenue. They're all physical attributes in some description. A psychographic is attitudes and beliefs. How do they actually think? So I'll give you a couple of examples. So one of our clients is a stockbroker. His demographic is people who have a minimum of $250,000 to invest in the stock market. So that is a demographic. There's a minimum amount that they have to have. The psychographic is he doesn't want people who want to second guess him. He wants to be able to say to somebody, this is what we do, this is how we do it, you need to take our advice. There's no point in having a dog and barking yourself and second guessing us all the time. So he needs a very particular mindset of people that he wants to work with. Then we come down to traffic and conversion, how you actually make money. So it's all very well to have a wonderful message and you can define a wonderful market, but if you can't actually get your message in front of them economically, they will never know that you actually exist. So you need to know exactly what the economics are. How are you actually going to get your message in front of them? Is it going to be email? Is it going to be advertising? What's that advertising going to cost you? If it's networking, what is your cost of going networking? Because everything has a cost. Everything takes time. Everything takes money. And then you've got to look at your conversion rate. What is your conversion rate? If you meet 4 people, how many of them do you convert? How many people do you need to put into your sales funnel to actually come up with a client? Most people, when I ask them what their conversion rate is, say something like, oh, I convert 60, 70, 80% of the people that I meet. And my response to that is you're probably not meeting enough people. The average conversion rate would be around 25% for most businesses. So out of 4 people that you meet, you're going to convert 1 of them into a long-term client. But you need to know the economics of that, because you need to know how much you can spend to acquire a client. One of the other things that we really stress with our clients is the lifetime value of a client, because most people make one sale and they never go back and they never actually upsell or back-end sell. And the more that you can back-end sell, the more money you will make, because it costs 6 to 7 times more to get a client in the door than to actually keep selling to them. And that's the real profit comes from the back-end selling. Anyone got any comments on any of that? You want to put it in the chat? Does this make sense? Give me a thumbs up. Okay. So let's look at one of the fundamental, most powerful concepts that we teach. It's called the format system, and this is a system of adult learning theory which was codified by Bernice McCarthy in the 1960s. And it's the basis of how we all learn and process information. And we use it in all the communication that we do, be it written, be it verbal, be it a presentation. And the reason we put this up, and this is something that everybody who's been on one of these webinars has said, this is one of the most interesting things that they've learned from this system, is because it allows you to speak and write in terms that your audience will relate to. So let's look at the 4 quadrants, starting with number 1, 2, 3, 4. So let me ask the question. How many of you, just put in the chat box, how many of you really want to know why you should be listening to something? Why I should give you the time of day? What's in it for me? Why now? Just put in the chat if you fall into that quadrant. You're really interested in the relevance of something before anything else. How many of you do that? Okay. How many people are really interested more in information? Knowledge is power is your mantra. You love information. You would love the theory behind something. It's not that you're not necessarily interested in the relevance, but it's more, give me more information. I'm really interested in delving deep into something and learning everything I can about it. How many of you in that quadrant? Both, okay. How many of you in the how quadrant? And the how quadrant is those classic people in chemistry class as kids. The teacher says, here are the 2 chemicals, and you went bang. You're not interested in the theory. You're not interested in why you're putting this together. You just want to see what happens. You're the people who take machinery apart, take stuff apart just to see how it works. And then there are the outcome driven, the what if people. Yeah, the what if people are lateral thinkers. They're already thinking about what else could I do with this? Where else could they be used? Very much an entrepreneurial mindset. Now, I should stress that we all do all of these quadrants. It's not that one of us, but we have preferences. So someone who is very why oriented is going to be less how oriented. So if somebody is really strong in the why quadrant, they're likely to be less interested in the how quadrant and vice versa. Somebody really strong in the what quadrant is going to be less interested in what else they can do. So in the case of someone who is an information seeker, and a lot of scientists, a lot of engineers are all information seekers, they're not necessarily interested in what else they can do with this. They're really interested in the information for the information's sake. So the point, though, is when you are writing something, when you are speaking to somebody, you don't know which quadrant they're going to fall into. Therefore, you need to go through every one of these quadrants in that order. So start with the why, give people a relevance and a context of what you're going to be talking about, then move into the information, then how they're going to do this, which is an exercise if you were teaching, and then what are the outcomes they could expect. But having said that, in a sales situation, you never, ever go into the what and the how in the beginning. This is the biggest mistake that we see people make. In a sales situation, your prospect is really only interested in relevance. They're only interested in why should I be interested? What is the problem? Why should I give you the time of day? And after you've talked about the various issues that they may have, and they have agreed that they have those issues, then you can talk about the outcomes that they can expect and what they want instead. The mistake that we see most salespeople make is they, in our jargon, they vomit all over their prospects. They go into into a demonstration. They give you all of the PowerPoint slides of, it does this and it does this and it does this and it does this, and everyone's eyes glaze over. Nobody at this point is interested in the what and the how. They will be at some point, but most people start here and go here rather than sticking with the why and the what if. This is one of the most critical mistakes that people make in sales. So let's move on to demand generation. One of the fundamental concepts that we teach is people buy when they're ready, not when you need to make a sale. And essentially there are 2 types of prospects. People who know they have a problem right now, and they're actively looking for a solution, and the rest of them. And this could include people who could be, the rest of them could include people who could be interested in the solution if they knew you existed and have a solution for specific issues that you could solve. But most marketing targets just this top little triangle up here, which may be 3% of your market if you're lucky. So when we talk about demand generation, most marketing just targets the tip of the iceberg up here. People are already looking for that solution and ready to buy. But if you only target these people, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, because it's that very small percentage of the entire market. So that's why we talk about prospecting. And prospecting is active, and it targets people who don't know you exist and could be on your market. And it involves that one-on-one conversations where you determine if someone could benefit from what you have to offer. So reaching out to prospects puts you in command of your pipeline and puts you in control, because if you're not sitting there waiting for somebody to turn up, you're actually actively going out there and looking. Now, having said that, your marketing activities support your prospecting. So this is, you don't do one but not the other. The marketing helps to raise your profile. For example, if your prospects regularly see your ads, they see your content, be it on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or a newsletter, videos, articles, seminars, you assume a position of familiarity so that when when you reach out to someone, they already know that you exist. So if you've been on any of our, in our orbit, you're on our newsletter list, or you see us on LinkedIn, or you see us on Facebook, you know who we are. So when I phone somebody, I pick up the phone and call somebody, the chances are they know, they've seen something of me, they know of me, and it goes from absolutely cold call to a semi-warm call, where at least they're willing to give you the time of day. They're willing to listen. They're willing to have a conversation. So marketing raises awareness. And we are a prime example of doing exactly this. So we've published a newsletter for 15 years straight. And it used to come out once a week, and now it comes out twice a week because we've added videos to the mix. So Wednesday is a newsletter, Friday you get a video, and we regularly put all of that material on LinkedIn as well as Facebook. And we also have extensive free material which showcases our expertise on our website. And all of that is designed to position us and educate our potential clients. And what we're looking for is effectively omnipresence. It makes us appear that everywhere that somebody might look, and it raises that recognition level and positions us in the marketplace. So if we look at this particular attract high value clients, this is a 56-page document which we give away in return for someone's contact details. And if somebody requests the document, I will phone them up and follow them up. Now, do they all turn up into sales? No, obviously not. But over time, we have found that people will read the document and at some point decide that they're ready to increase their growth, and they will phone us up. And if they come and sit down in front of us, we will actually see they've printed out the document, they've highlighted whole sections of it, they put sticky notes in. And generally, they'll say, look, we've already decided to work with you. This was just a question of we wanted to just sit down with you and work out, how we were going to do this together. But they'd already made the decision based on all of the positioning that we'd already done beforehand. And that is a great place to be. If you can achieve that, and that's what we help our clients achieve, it makes the sale infinitely easier, because you are not sitting there trying to convince somebody to buy. They've already convinced themselves that they want to buy. Barbara, you want to say anything?
No, it's basically, there are two ways to look at it. One is building the orbit, which then, if you go back to that triangle, that pyramid building, that extends the reach into the blue and the purple and the orange. And then that helps you fill the sales pipeline, and the marketing that doesn't only support the prospecting, it also supports the sales, because not everybody is ready to buy now. But if you keep talking to them and keep in touch with them, they're more likely to buy, say, 3 years down the track, rather than go somewhere else.
And we're an absolute testament of this, because we've had a number of new clients recently that I have been speaking to, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 1 year, sometimes 5 years, and all of a sudden something changes, and who are they going to call? They're going to call the person who has been giving them value and keeping in touch with them. And that's exactly what happens.
And the trust building that happens over time, in particular now, is really important right now, where I know I need to do something. Who do I go with? Someone that's been giving me valuable stuff might just get, you know, ahead of the curve, and you might give them preference. And that's certainly been our experience over the last little while.
So we look at prospecting. Now, most people, you know, given the thought of prospecting puts the fear of God into them. Let's put it bluntly. Okay. Marketing is still passive. You're still waiting for somebody to come to you. Prospecting means that you reach out to them and form that relationship with them. Now, that's not to say that you have to prospect cold. You could start prospecting by connecting with somebody on LinkedIn, exchanging a couple of messages, and at some point, though, I say you have to pick up the phone. Very little is done just on the basis of email, especially if it's a high value product or service. You know, people aren't going to spend significant amounts of money where there's a high degree of trust involved if they haven't spoken to somebody, if they haven't spoken to you. That's just the way it is. Okay. So when we talk prospecting, you know, you can pick up the phone, you can send a LinkedIn message, you can send an email, you could send physical mail. Now, physical mail, certainly before COVID, was fantastic, because you could send something in the mail which was lumpy mail, which would stand out. So you could send something in an express mail envelope, guarantee it would be opened. If you have a sales letter that includes an object, so one of the best ones that we saw was a jeweled elephant, where the chap put it in a box. He sent this thing with a covering letter saying, "What's the elephant in the room?" Guaranteed somebody is going to open this thing, and you are more likely to get a response if you make a phone call after that. SMS is absolutely fantastic, especially if you're dealing with tradies who sit on their mobile phones. And fax, believe it or not, fax still works. We've had clients that come off fax, especially in the pharmaceutical industry with doctors, pharmacists. We've had manufacturers come off a fax. So don't discount any of these systems. They all work, but you've just got to understand how your clients want to be dealt with. So the question then becomes, how often should you follow somebody up? I can tell you that most people give up way too early. Most people I know will give up after the first phone call. Somebody says no, and they will never call them again. Remember, no is just no right now. They're not ready to buy right now. No is not never, it's just right now. And if you remember the demand iceberg, most people only target the top of that iceberg, the low-hanging fruit, the people who are absolutely ready to buy now. But the reality is most sales are made on multiple contacts. And if you look at this is a chart from Microsoft that says 89% of the people give up on the fourth contact, but most sales are made down here somewhere on the 12th contact. Now that obviously isn't always the case. Sometimes you're going to get somebody, you happen to hit them at exactly the right time. But the vast majority of people are going to take some form of nurturing where trust is built up before they engage with you to become a client. And I always laugh at this particular story. So we had a client years ago, and we were talking about this, and he said that he'd got a letter from somebody in the mail, and it obviously looked like a sales letter, marketing letter, and he just threw it away without opening it. The second one he opened it, took a glance at it, threw it away without looking at it, really reading it. The third one he read, he said, yeah, okay, this is good, this could be interesting, threw it away. The fourth one he read, and he said, yes, I'll keep this on my shelf. If the guy ever contacts me again, I'll probably do business with him. Guess what? He never got a fifth one. So the point here is you've got to keep in contact with people. Now, how often should you keep in contact? This is the other question that I keep getting asked. So I would suggest a minimum of 90 days, every 90 days. And why 90 days? I learned this from Wendy Evans, who worked for Thomas Cook, Saki and Saki, Intercontinental Hotels. And she found that 90 days was the maximum time that somebody would remember you. And it was really weird, she said, on day 91, if somebody came into one of your clients, even though they know you well, with something that the client wanted, they would actually go with the new supplier. They would actually forget you on day 91. And she said, I could prove it time and time and time again. So you have to communicate with people at least once every 90 days to make sure that they don't forget you. And the other thing is you need to make sure that your clients know everything that you could possibly do for them. Now, this is another true story. So I had a call from a printer one day on our newsletter list, and he said, oh, Rashid, let me tell you the story of how I lost a big deal. So he had been printing business cards for this company for something like 20 years. And he'd gone over to deliver these business cards, and he was looking around their warehouse, and he noticed a whole pile of stuff in the corner. And he said, oh, what's all that stuff? And they said, oh, well, somebody came in, we wanted this thing, and we said, go ahead and do it. And he said, oh, but I could have done that for you. And the client said, we had no idea that you could. Now, he'd been working with these people for 20 years, and he had never told them that he could have done that job. And he said, guess how much that job was worth? $500,000. So he lost out on a $500,000 deal because he did not actually keep communicating with his clients. And I'll give you another example. So a few Christmases ago, I had a phone call from a chap, and the first thing he did was he said, oh, Rashid, I have to apologize. And I said, what are you apologizing for? And he said, I've been getting your newsletter for 2 years. And I keep hitting delete. And I saw this particular subject line and it caught my attention. And he said, I've got an issue with my Salesforce and I would like some help. Can you help me? And I said, great. Okay. So we did a deal. We went and we helped with the Salesforce. And after that, Barbara said, have you followed up? What else can we do for them? This was a subsidiary of a major multinational. So a reasonably large organization. I said, look, I haven't. They will contact me if they want something. And she's going, no, you've got to follow them up. So I called them up, and we're in Wahroonga, which is in the north part of Sydney, for those of you who know Sydney, and they were down in Campbelltown, and we were going to Canberra. So I said, okay, Barbara insisted that we stop and we meet them. I phoned them up, we met them. That meeting then led to a further engagement, which brought in $100,000 for us, because we did a whole bunch of stuff around leadership, about increasing their sales effectiveness, and they, working with us, became the second most profitable subsidiary behind Germany worldwide. And just through one activity that we did with them with a major trade show, gave them the greatest ROI in 10 years of being in Australia. So that just comes off the back of a follow-up. So you have to keep in contact with people, and you keep nurturing. But at some point you have to nudge and say, hey, you've told me all of this stuff. Do you want to fix it or not? Because the greatest mistake that we also see is people just have lovely conversations in sales, but they don't actually ask for the order. And that's something that we really help our clients do. Formulate their sales process so that they will actually bring in more business. So here's an example of how you put a marketing and prospecting and sales structure. And this is a particular client of ours. And he's a leadership coach who is absolutely passionate about improving student performance and learning outcomes. And his target is leadership teams, specifically principals of large private schools in Australia. And so we put a system together which has a number of steps. So the first step is we basically interviewed his clients, which were principals of these schools, to find out what they were looking for in his solution. So why did they engage with him? What did they really want? And then we used our product and alignment canvas methodology to determine what each client valued about his service and why they valued it on a scale of 1 to 10 and what else that they wanted. And we also, doing that, looked at where he could improve and what additional services he could provide. And two things came out of this. So this is why we always insist that people talk to their clients. The first one was that he was delivering a one-year program for $25,000. to the leadership team. And the principals are saying to me, look, 1 year isn't actually enough for us to be able to implement everything that he does. So I said, okay, so if 1 year isn't enough, how long would you want to spend? They said, oh, 3 years. And I said, okay, so are you willing to spend 3 times the money? And they said, yes. So in one fell swoop, we went from $25,000 for a 1 year sale to a 3-year sale of $75,000. And remember, you're making the sale once. You don't have to go back every year and keep making the sale. You've already made the sale once. The second thing that came out of that was that he had a whole 360 review feedback from the students, which he could then hive off as a separate product and sell to schools who didn't necessarily want all the leadership enchilada, but they just wanted the student learning feedback surveys to see how the school was actually going. And from all of this, we created marketing collateral, which included a very comprehensive white paper. We bought a prospect list because it's a school. Schools don't exactly move physically. You can buy a list of the principals. And then created a sales and marketing campaign where we would send the white paper. He'd written a couple of books which positioned himself as a thought leader. We would send this material to the schools. We would follow up with phone calls. And at one point, he was he'd bought a booth in a school conference, trade show with principals. And we'd sent letters to all of the principals who were attending saying he was going to be there, go and have a meeting with him. And he turned up. A principal walked up to him and he said, I've got all your material. I've looked at your case studies. I've spoken to other people that you worked with. I want to sign up. Here's my money. That is the power of positioning. So let's move into a sales situation. People buy things because they're not satisfied with where they're at. There's either some pain that they want to get away from, something that they don't want, or there is some future that they want. So pain, gain. And there's something stopping them from getting there, which is effectively your solution. And your solution is the bridge. But as I said before, the mistake that people make is when they're talking to somebody is they say, oh, you know, what's your present, what's your future? And they go straight into the solution and vomit all over their prospects rather than actually looking at the obstacles that are stopping them from going and getting what they want. So we're going to go into that a little bit more deeply. Now notice, you recognize this is the format system once again. But rather than start here, what I want people to do is to start here and really research what your prospects want. You need to get a really deep understanding of what their issues are and approach them from a place of compassion and deep conviction that you can actually sell them. Because we always say that the first sale is to yourself. If you don't actually believe in what you're doing, and this is, and it's surprising how many professional salespeople, especially when they work for another organization as an employee, actually don't necessarily believe in their own solution. If you don't believe in your own solution, why would I believe that you have a solution that you can actually help me with? So the first sale is always, always, always to yourself. So you need to know what issues they're likely to be they're facing. Think in terms of pain and gain, and something that prospects either want to move away from or want to move towards. And realize also that pain is a much greater motivator than gain. So if touching a hot stove, you're not going to do that again, okay? So you need to know what their issues are. And the best way to do this is ask 100 people in your target market, what are their biggest challenges and what would they say? And what keeps them up at night, okay? So in our case, when we're dealing with people, it could be not enough leads, they risk becoming a commodity and competing on price, and there's a pressure to discount. But there's also unspoken stuff they won't talk about. What's under the surface underneath all of this? What haven't they openly voiced? Maybe some of them are ashamed to admit this. For example, you know, do I provide enough value? Can I charge more? Am I a good business person? You'd be surprised at how many people wonder and think that they're not good business people. And from this, you can narrow down the list of what their most important issues are and why. And you got to think, once again, in terms of tangible and emotional payoff. Tangible are quantifiable. For example, you'll increase production efficiency by 23% in 6 months. Emotional is increasing someone's status. Are they likely to get recognized, a promotion, feel proud of their achievement, happier, satisfied lifestyle? The key in a sales call, though, is not to go into the what and the how. Stay in the why and the what if. So this is an acrostic that we use both when we're looking at researching the client or the prospect, as well as when we are in a prospecting and sales conversation with someone. So what we want to know is the D stands for the details. What are their top 3 issues? What do they openly speak about? What's not spoken? How long have they been experiencing this problem? What's the cost of this? What's the cost of fixing it? What's the cost of not fixing it? Without obstacles, nothing is going to change, because we all have problems and we don't necessarily want to fix them. So what is the payoff of this of fixing this problem? So what have they done to try and fix the problem? What's stopping them achieving what they want? What have they tried? What have they done? What have they not succeeded with? And the inaction is what will happen if they don't fix this. And then we want to move into the future, which is emotions and logic. Remember, we all buy on emotion and justify with logic. And I don't care whether you're the CEO of a Fortune 100 or you're buying something because you just walk into a shop and you say, oh, that looks really pretty and I want to buy it. We all buy on emotion and then justify that with logic, either to ourselves, how do we justify the purchase to ourselves, to somebody else, to our peers, to the organization, to the family. We all do this. And remember, in a sales situation, the 80-20 rule applies. 20% you talking, 80% them talking. Your role is to have a structured conversation where they answer questions and go into what they're facing and what they want instead. So when we structure a call, and I'll just go over this very, very briefly, we start the call with knowing, okay, let me put it this way. We never start with a pitch. This is what happens when you get a cold call from somebody and they start with the pitch and you have no idea why they're going on about this and you're not even interested and you have no idea what they're even going on about. And you're probably likely to put the phone down. So always start by talking about 2 or 3 key problems that they're likely to be experiencing. And I would say something along the lines of, typically when I speak to someone in your position, they commonly share with me 2 key problems. Problem 1, problem 2. Do either of those sound remotely familiar in your world? What you want to do is to start getting people to talk about their issues. You want to get them to talk about what it is that they want instead. The value model is an aspirational journey, and we have various models for this, but really what people are looking for is either more time, more money, more status, or more lifestyle. That's what everybody wants in some combination from whatever it is that they're doing. And it's only after they've agreed that they want these things that you can present a solution. Never present a solution to somebody before they've actually agreed that they want the solution. And then once you presented the solution, you need to invite them to buy. And this is the other mistake that we see people make constantly. And I remember, I'd say, this is going back well over 35 years, and one of my first sales roles, and I had meeting after meeting after meeting with these very senior people in a large organization. And at one point, the head guy turns around to me and he says, "But Rashid, we've had 5 meetings. What do you want us to do?" And I went, oh. The whole point in sales is that you are leading them on a journey. You know they have a problem. They've admitted they have a problem. You know what the outcome is that they want. You need to lead them on this journey to getting a commitment to actually fixing the problem. You need to tell them that, okay, this is what we're doing. This is how we're going to do it. These are the next steps. And you need to get a commitment from them to take the next step. And that next step might be simply a purchase order, or it might be a commitment to have another meeting, but you really want to get to a point where a decision is made. And what we find with a lot of people is there is a fear of, because there's a fear of rejection, you won't actually ask the connection, or you won't actually ask the question, because you invite somebody, they're either going to say yes or no. And both are absolutely valid, because if they say yes, you know where you stand, and if they say no, you know where you stand, and you can move on. But if you stay in a state of limbo, then nothing ever transpires, and both parties walk away, and they both feel dissatisfied, because you knew you could help them with something, and they knew you could help them with something, but no decision was ever made. Does that make sense? So let's talk about some of the problems that we really see. One is people wing it. They don't use a structure. In a sales situation, you have to provide the structure, they provide the content. You're providing the structure, saying, okay, we're going to talk about the problems, we're going to talk about the value model, we're going to talk about the solution, we're going to invite them to commit, and we're going to have a process all the way down the line. They provide the content of what is going on in their world. But if you don't have a structure, this conversation is just going to go all over the place, and nobody's actually going to be satisfied. So use the format, stick to the why and the what if, do not go into the what and the how. Also, be very clear as to the value adding and at what level of the organization that you're doing this. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So one of our clients is a manufacturing consultant, and he helps mainly food manufacturers in Australia increase their manufacturing efficiency. Now, what staggered me was, in Australia, manufacturing efficiency hovers around the 35%. World's best practice in Germany is around 85%. So there's a massive difference. So he was going into plants and talking to the plant manager and saying, listen, I can increase your manufacturing efficiency from here to here. But he was actually getting short shift. He wasn't getting very far. And the reason he wasn't getting very far was that these plant managers were going, hang on, you're going to show me up. I've been here 20 years and I haven't been able to do this. So I'm going to lose status. I'm going to lose this part over here. So I'm actually going to kibosh the deal. And it's only once we said, no, you actually have to target the owner or the managing director, that things change. But you've also got to take into account that the plant manager might well kibosh the deal. Because in a complex sale where there are multiple people involved, generally one person will make the final decision, but there could be many people who contribute this and can actually say no. And you've got to be able to cover all the bases, which is something that we do when we work with our clients. We teach people how to strategically sell. You've also got to understand always the self-interest of the person buying is very often different to the self-interest of the organization. Now, when you're dealing with a small business and you're dealing with the business owner, the self-interest of the business owner is the same as the business. But the minute it becomes a large organization, the self-interest of the person making the decision may actually be quite different to the self-interest of the organization. So you might be adding real value to the organization, but the person might be saying, oh, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to look bad, therefore I'm not going to go with this. And it's surprising how many of these examples that we come across time and time again. Any questions on any of that? Let me just go back to this for a second. Coming back to the format. One of our clients happens to be the same manufacturing consultant, used this system. Just to give you an idea of the power of this system. He used to take about 8 days to put a keynote together with about 60 slides. And using this system of the why, what, how, and the what if, got it down to 1 day. And not only that, but he said that he got voted the best keynote presenter at a major industry conference, which resulted in him getting in front of the leadership team of a major manufacturer that he'd been trying to for a long time, just by using a system rather than winging it. So this is a really powerful system that you can use whether it's in written form or verbal form. So let's just move on to the last bit. So I trust you you found this useful, and we've done our best to give you a very high level framework where you can attract and convert more clients in the next 90 days. So now you've got a couple of paths you can take. One is you can take what we've learned and use it, and we'd say fantastic, and that's really great, and we'd love you to do that. However, there will be some of you who want to accelerate your progress. So we have a 90-day program which brings together your marketing, prospecting, and selling into a cohesive activity. So the aim is to have you develop a strong, clear value proposition that cuts through getting the attention of your ideal clients. Position yourself as an authority at the top of your market, where clients will sell themselves and wanting to work with you without quibbling about price. And we want you to feel comfortable in your ability to sell your services and having great conversations where there's an exchange of value. So when you present a solution, your prospects readily buy into it. And be in a position where the majority of your sales meetings will lead to new profitable business. And the net result of all of this is you'll build the foundations to lead to long-term profitable growth. So if you are interested, we'd certainly invite you to give us a call, where we'll spend an hour together with no obligation on your part to brainstorm a strategy to get clarity and a path forward to bringing in clients. We're doing it absolutely free. And the reason we do it is we know that, A, we like to give value, and we also know that the percentage of people will be interested in working with us to implement what we map out together. So we will give you a complete roadmap in an hour where we can then work with you or not, but you will have a roadmap to take away. Does that sound fair? So if that is, by all means, drop me a note. In any case, we eat our own dog food, so every one of you will at some point will get a phone call just to follow you up to see, get some feedback on the webinar and what you found most useful. And we would certainly appreciate your referrals. And that's it. So I'll stop the share, and we'll go back to the main screen, and I will unmute everybody if anyone wants to add any comments. Oops, wrong one. How do I unmute everybody? Okay, there you go. If you want to unmute yourself, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, if I ask a question, Rashid?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so I'm not sure if we're on your target market at the moment. It's a startup mode, so we're yet to make the first sale. You okay if I ask a question in that context? Do you want to answer your question?
Yeah, sure. No,
okay, cool, thanks. So I'm targeting construction owners, people who run construction companies. They have more than 50 people on site. I don't know that many of them. And so it's hard to just say, hey, can I just call you and ask you some questions to get that real understanding of the top 3 to 5 problems. I think I know what they are, but I'm not too sure. I've done a big reach out on LinkedIn to like 400 people, but the Americans respond a lot more than the Australians do. I mean, one Australian say, yeah, let's talk. So yeah, they don't really go on LinkedIn that much, these building construction owners that I'm targeting. The big guys do, like, you know, the Mirvacs and the Lendleases, they're all on LinkedIn, but I'm trying to get the small guys to get the first sale.
Yeah, and I think you'll find this is a message to market problem. The same thing with the manufacturing consultant. He was targeting plant managers on LinkedIn and getting absolutely no response.
Yeah.
So it's a question of being able to find out, you know, where do these people live, and you know, could you find somebody who possibly knows them that could give you an introduction and say, look, you know, could you spend, you know, 5 minutes talking to them, talking to Andrew, and get an introduction that way. The other way to do it is to actually say, look, I know that you're likely to have these 3 problems. Do any of these really resonate with you? And if not, is it something else? Because I'm doing some research. I actually find that most people will talk to you if you pick up the phone and you put it
like that.
You know, if you pick up the phone and said, look, could you help me out for a moment? Okay. Yeah. Most people are going to say yes.
Okay.
I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. It's not going to take you more than, say, 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you be able to do that? And most people will say, yes, I'll give you 4 minutes. Now, when we talk to people and we say, okay, look, it's only a few minutes. Sometimes these people have spoken to us for an hour.
Yeah. It would take 15 minutes at least to have a conversation.
Yeah, and most people, look, if you pick up the phone and you say, look, could you help me out for a minute? 95% of people are going to say yes. And if it's not the right time, say, look, maybe it's not the right time. Maybe I can, could I make a time to call you back?
Yeah, right.
Okay. And if you make a time to call somebody back, and let's say that and they agree that it's 10 o'clock on Friday. All right. What you want to do is to call them at precisely 10 o'clock on Friday.
Yep.
Now, the chances of them being there are probably nil, but that doesn't matter because you phone them up and you say, hey, listen, it's Andrew. We agreed that we'd speak at Friday, 10 o'clock. It's Friday, 10 o'clock. And you leave a message.
Yeah.
And then you say, I'm going to call you back whatever time, okay, whatever day.
Yeah.
Make sure you call them back. After the third or fourth one, trust me, they will either call you back or they'll pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Because what it's doing is it's actually showing a commitment and consistency, and it's building up trust. It's building up trust from the point of view of you have said you're going to do this and you've done it.
Yeah. Great. Thanks.
Paul, sure, go ahead. Just unmute yourself, please. Can you?
Who's muted?
Paul Herring had put up his hand, I think.
Okay, hang on a second. Ask to unmute. Try now, Paul.
No, yeah.
Good, Rashid. Yeah, you said earlier about referrals, and I made a bit of a note of that. Over the years, referrals to me are the greatest source of new prospects, new business, of course. But doing it professionally and with finesse takes a lot to do. It takes a lot because a lot of times people just beg for these referrals, especially in the insurance industry, which is where I've been for a long time. But referrals really does resonate, and if you can get them right, you've almost got a roadmap to success.
It's referrals are always an interesting thing because the minute you're giving a referral to somebody, you are transferring some trust.
Yeah.
You are saying that I am going to refer someone to Paul, therefore I have to give some of my trust that Paul is going to do the right thing. Okay.
Absolutely.
And most people won't do that. And it's that fear of something not happening. And that's why a recommendation is so much more powerful than a referral. But when we're talking referrals, in effect, you're also asking the referrer to make the sale for you in some respects, and asking them to promote you in some respects. And that's not their job. So there are a couple of things that we say with referrals. Number one, even if you get a referral, treat it like a cold call. The person being referred to you doesn't really know anything about you. There's no level of trust yet. The other thing is give your referrers something that they can just hand to a referee. So somebody they want to refer to that basically highlights the issues that they're likely to be facing, the potential clients. So you're going through a why, what, how, and a what if, okay? Just as a one pager, or even, you could even do it as a white paper that they can just hand somebody and say, go here, watch this video, read this material. It basically does the heavy lifting of positioning you without the referrer having to do it for you, because it always comes down to the third party rule. Who do you trust? It's this a silly example is you're walking, when we could walk down the main street of a town we didn't know, and you're looking for a restaurant, and you walk past various restaurants and you look in and you say, okay, now how many people are in there? If there's nobody in there, they can't be any good. But if there are lots of people in there, they're probably good. So you don't know any of these people. You don't still know what the food is like. And somebody walks out and you say to them, oh, what's the food like in there? And they say, oh, it's fantastic. Okay. And you go, I believe you. What you didn't know was it was the chef going on his break. But you believe them because they're a completely third-party source. Yeah. So we can promote anybody but ourselves. So the thing with having a third party, something that you can give somebody, you give them a white paper, you give them a video, you give them something that they can just hand out that does the selling for you. So you can't expect them to do it. and you're not doing it, but this third piece of something, collateral, is doing it for you. It's at least warming it up.
Well, they're endorsing you, aren't they, Rashid?
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about here. Yeah, so you made sense in every way here, because you and I have spoken a couple of times before.
We have.
We're on the same page, but there it is. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Can I add something? I think, Rashid, this is really, really interesting, and I love it, and I'm grateful. The white paper, okay, I have an outsourcing company at the moment, but it used to be that I was in HR I was an HR manager in a medical company here in North Pride. What happened to me was, like, when you're in HR, like, a lot of outsourcing or a lot of recruitment companies actually come to me. You know, it's sort of like 5 a week or something. But at that time, there was this one company who actually gave me a white paper. I mean, and out of all of the recruitment paper, of all of the recruitment company, I, of course, like, read the white paper. It was interesting, it was engaging, and it works. It really works, this bloody white paper thing. It really works because it's adding value without getting to my nerves at that time when I was HR, you know. But in the meantime, my perception was, okay, they want to help me, and I grabbed it, and I really used him, you know, like, at the time, you know. I think it works, this white paper thing. Thank you.
Look, anything that promotes you in a third-party way is going to work better than somebody that doesn't have that. It's as simple as that.
Thank you.
Okay?
That makes sense.
Okay. Anyone else before we sign off?
No, just thank you for that. That was good info.
Thanks.